Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here to the first webinar of the Co-VAL project. The Co-VAL project is an Horizon 2020 project focusing on the value of co-creation in public services. And this is our first webinar. We will just wait a couple of minutes for attendees who are pouring in. So welcome everyone while you're joining. While we wait for the other attendees to join in, let me just give you a brief overview of the platform and how it works. Now, you all will be able to pose questions anytime during the presentations of today. To do so, you have to activate the question panel and submit a question. Obviously, we will not answer the question immediately, but I will take care of gathering all the questions and posing the question later to the speakers. So feel free to not interrupt at any time, because you will not interrupt. You will just submit the questions, and I will make sure that they get an answer at the end. Today we have a very rich panel, so hopefully we will also have time to address your questions. It's now 11:01. We just wait 1 minute and then we will start. Okay. Thank you very much for your patience. We have a lot of attendees here today. As I was saying, this is our first webinar for the Co-VAL project. It will focus on a long-term view of the evolution of public administration. The focus of the Co-VAL project is particularly on how co-creation is transforming European public administration. Just to be very clear, Co-VAL is a Horizon 2020 funded project under call 2016-17, lasts for 36 months. So we just finished our first year, and we have 12 partners that mainly from universities. The project aims to pursue 4 objectives: to provide a robust new theoretical framework, to measure and monitor transformation, and to focus on 4 key areas of government transformation, such as digital transformation, service design, living labs, and public-private partnerships. But most of all, the project aims to have an impact, to be practical, but to be useful to people like you. So not just to provide an overview, not just provide theoretical background, but to support transformation in public administration. These are the partners, as you can see, very prestigious partners, mostly from universities, but also companies, consultancies, and think tanks such as ourselves. I myself, my name is David Osimo from the Lisbon Council, who is in charge mostly of achieving policy impact from the project. This is what the project does. There are basically 3 areas. There is a conceptual framework, which works mainly on cross-cutting co-creation areas. And there is below, you will see the empirical work being done on the key areas of transformation. And then on the right side, you can see the policy impact. So elaborating, making sure that the recommendations and the findings that come out of the theoretical part and of the empirical part get translated to policy impact. To be concrete, we have already delivered a number of intermediary results namely theoretical frameworks, the process tracing exercise on digital government, cross-country comparison of service design, literature review on living labs, and on the right side you see the first policy paper on how local government reform is fundamental to Europe digital success. Excuse me, seems that there is okay, it seems that there is a problem with seeing my presentation. Let me see. I will show it again. Please confirm that you can see this now this time. Can you see it now? Okay. A small technical glitch. Let me try without the camera and redisplaying the presentation. No, still not visible? It is visible. Oh, great. Excellent. I'm sorry about that. So as I was saying, anyway, my part is purely an introduction, so it's not what matters. As I was saying, we have a theoretical part, an empirical part, and a policy part. And today we will focus on the general development in WP3, on the general development of digital policy, and in particular digital government policy in the member states. Now, today you will hear, and we're lucky enough to have here presenting Miguel Alvarez Rodriguez from the European Commission, who has been in charge of a groundbreaking study looking back at 20 years of e-government, of digital government. The study is not yet published, but we will have a first sneak peek into the key findings. So thank you very much for being here. And on the other side, there will be partners from the Co-VAL project, from the different member states who have studied the development of digital government through this process tracing methodology throughout the years. So it's a kind of, we first have a general overview, a systematic overview based on the finding of the European Commission study, and then we will have, if you want, some kind of live reporting from the member states, saying what's going on and what's the perspective. Let me just finish by showing the key from the fundamental contact details for any additional information. So without further ado, and hopefully without any further technical problem, let me give the floor to the Lisbon Council office that you see, Stefan Lewczynski and Miguel Alvarez Rodriguez. The floor is yours. Normally you will be able to share your screen too.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much to the Lisbon Council, to David, to Stefan for giving us this opportunity to present this study, this report. I mean, over the last 10 years, a lot of things have changed in public administration. I mean, back in time, 10 years ago, very few people could imagine that now we would be able to do a lot of things over the internet with our smartphones. And furthermore, public administration working in these very innovative concepts like the one you are working on, co-creation, proactive services. There are already public administrations notifying proactively to a citizen when a new child is born, to the parents that they are entitled to these social aids, subsidies, or wherever. Some governments are already working in this direction. So there is a lot of transformation going on thanks to the new technologies, but thanks also to a new way, a new perspective of seeing things in public administration. So my name, as David introduced, my name is Miguel Alvarez, and I will be presenting to you the 10-year anniversary report of the e-government fact sheets. I'm coming from the Directorate of Informatics of the European Commission. And give you just a little bit of some kind of background information. What is this e-government fact sheets? The Commission is doing on an annual basis for the last 10 years an annual report per member state, just analyzing how e-government is progressing, what are the policies, strategies, and the legal framework established in each member state to foster e-government, digital services, what are the available infrastructures, the digital services offered to citizens and businesses. And basically, we are capturing these findings in each individual fact sheet. Since we have already the perspective of 10 years, we can really now take stock on how things are changing per member state and what are the main trends and the main aspects that are moving forward in general at EU level. This is the reason, the main motivation to now make a kind of stop and just analyze how things has changed from different aspects over the last 10 years. Yeah. So basically, we are covering the 28 member states. You go to Join Up, we have a portal that is called Join Up, otherwise you Google it and you will find it very easily, e-government fact sheets, and you will find one individual report per member state. We are covering the 28 member states plus the European Free Trade Agreement associated countries, namely Norway, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, also Turkey, and the former Yugoslavian Republic of Macedonia, and pretty soon other countries will be joining in this kind of annual reporting exercise. In this report I'm talking about, we have analyzed the main trends across Europe when it comes to e-government. We are focusing on e-government, also digital services. What is the result of e-government policies? We are also looking from the user perspective. What are the new services for citizens, for businesses? Over the last 10 years, how has the situation changed? And in this report, finally, we are also highlighting, because it's fair to do it, the important role that the European institutions, particularly the Commission, has played in providing guidance and, providing support to the member states to change the legal frameworks and to introduce into the political agenda digital transformation as one of the key enablers for better public services across the member states. So I will give you some key findings that you will find in the report. Basically, we have identified three main key findings. All member states are adopting digital strategies. They have adopted digital strategies over the last 10 years. For instance, Italy in 2016 adopted a 3-year modernization plan. It's worth to say that these strategies, in most of the cases, have been triggered by the e-government action plan established by the Commission and by the digital agenda. Switzerland has also an e-government strategy. They launched it very early, already in 2007. And in Denmark, for instance, there is a national strategy on data to enable the access to some data in order to data that is hosted in different base registries, like the population registry, the business registry, in order to foster this principle of the once only principle, and to minimize the administrative burden. When it comes to lawmaking, since digital strategies are in the political agenda, this is crystallized in pieces of legislation that has been passed in the different parliaments across Europe. These laws, in principle, they lay the foundation for digital services. I can give you a few examples. For instance, in Spain, already in 2007, and later on with new pieces of legislation, created a very new emerging piece of legislation, but it's a legislation enabling and giving the rights to citizens to interact digitally with public administration, citizens and businesses. We have in Italy, again, the Digital Administration Code. In Hungary, sorry, they have created a new government legal framework. ICT is touching different aspects. For instance, in Belgium, there is the G-Cloud legislation supporting cybersecurity. And in the Czech Republic, there is an act on base registries enabling these data exchanges, data access to data repositories for the realization of the once only principle. And then going into practical examples, so we have first of all strategies, then legislation, and then we have, as a result of this legislation, obligations from the member states' point of view, from the administration point of view, and this is crystallized in the implementation of digital services and digital infrastructures. Before offering digital services, member states have deployed some, let's say, state-of-the-art infrastructures, and also they have created new dedicated authorities to foster these digital services. For instance, and this is quite recent, Sweden has created now a new state government agency that is going to oversee digital services across the country. We have in Poland the Ministry of Digital Affairs that is also taking care of digital government. And when it comes to infrastructures, for instance, in Belgium, there is a federal bus that is connecting the different regions and the federal state for these data exchanges for the once only principle. We have, it's well known, the case of Estonia with X-Road. And Estonia is also working now on event-related services, so maybe this is also important for today's discussion, looking at what are the main life events and business events and just creating more proactive services for citizens. So this is in a nutshell. I don't have time to go through more examples, but basically once the report is published, you can go through these examples, but these are the three main trends. In the report, you will find also what is right now the current political and legal highlights across the member states and other countries that we are analyzing. And we can see here that there is a lot of things going on. Last year, we have spotted that there are already 33 political communications, 33 political communications, 43 laws, and other financial instruments used by the governments to digitalize public administration and to foster digital services. When it comes to particular infrastructures, most of the governments have deployed or are in the process of deploying some fundamental enablers or building blocks. For example, EID, and we have as a key enabler the IDAS regulation. E-procurement is something that is also in the agenda of many administrations to be more efficient and to also comply with the principles of transparency, competition, and so on. E-signatures and e-documents. Some governments, for instance, the case of Spain, have created a very comprehensive interoperability framework to digitalize documents at all levels, covering the whole life cycle, since the citizen is just producing a document and is submitting this document until the moment that an administration needs to notify something to a business. So all these processes are in the process of being digitalized. Data protection and cybersecurity are definitely in the agenda of the governments. There is a lot of things going on, blockchain, new technologies as well. And when it comes to the provision of digital services, we have detected these major trends. In principle, as we could expect it, the largest chunk of services are offered to citizens. 75% of the digital public services that we have spotted are offered to citizens, and there is a huge importance to health. Health now is taking, in our statistics, is 15% of the services are related to health matters. Residence and other formalities is coming later on with 6%, work and retirement, and then we have other marginal areas, important domain areas like justice, family, education. And when it comes to doing business, there is also a lot of attention to business, to attract foreign investors, national investors, so governments are doing a lot of effort to be more attractive and to streamline the processes about doing businesses, all the administrative procedures. And finally, what is the role of the Commission in this digital transformation? Well, there are three, let's say, three main streams. Political initiatives, of course, and recently we have the Tallinn Declaration, the Tallinn Ministerial Declaration, where important principles were adopted, like the principle of open by default and the principle of interoperability by default. We have also the new interoperability framework that is supporting member states to integrate IT systems and to design new systems in a way that they can be reused and they can better integrate it in all the policy areas. And in the past, we have the digital single market strategy, the government action plan, and so on and so forth. Legislation, okay, the new pieces of legislation, brand new pieces of legislation. We have now the regulation of the single digital gateway that is going to be a huge push for governments to digitalize at least 21 administrative procedures that are quite common, covering 7 life event areas. We have a communication of the European Interoperability Framework. We have the IDAS regulation that is being another push for trust services, EID, signatures, to create a market of trust services and to build interoperability across member states. All these initiatives, is worth mentioning, are also focusing on cross-border and a cross-border dimension. That's the reason why we are promoting the European Interoperability Framework, because this is the way to create cross-border services and to be interoperable. We have citizens and businesses moving from one country to another, so these services, they need to be open to foreigners. And funding initiatives, well, it's been mentioned here, Horizon 2020, this is the case of this project today that is discussed in this webinar. We have ISO Square program. I'm coming from the unit that we are managing this program, and we are supporting solutions, interoperable solutions. We have the Connecting Europe facility that is developing common building blocks that can be deployed at a national level on e-procurement, EID, e-signatures, e-delivery. And the structural reform support program, some member states are leveraging from these reform programs. And actually, we have another study where we are exposing indeed how member states are using this semester. We call it the semester report, and we analyze how the different funding instruments of the Commission are used by member states to digitalize services. And finally, I'm concluding the question mark, where can I find the report? Well, unfortunately, the report is being a bit delayed, so we don't expect to be published before January. We want to have a political, let's say, a political stamp on the report, because in a way, it's a report coming from the Commission showing to the member states what they are doing and also how the Commission is supporting. So we want to have some political support. So we are expecting for the Commissioner to sign the foreword. And in any case, we will announce in due time when the report is published, and you will be able to find it. In the meantime, next year there will be an update of these fact sheets, taking stock on what's been done this year in 2018, and those fact sheets will be published in 2019. These fact sheets will be revamped, and now we are including also these ones only principles, so we are also monitoring how governments are integrating base registries and fostering these data exchanges. So that's it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Miguel. I think this was an excellent presentation that to stimulate the curiosity of all the audience. Already many people asked at least for the slides, and I am sure that you will get a lot of attention to the new report, because it covers
areas which are really a matter not just of interest but of daily practice by all member states. Now, I would like to take this opportunity to yes, more question coming in the slides and the recording. Just to clarify with everyone and put everyone at peace, we will upload the slides and the recording on the Co-VAL website, and I will show the website again at the end. It's coval.eu. But thank you for your interest. Now, if we can start the round of observation and comments. We have many qualified discussants today from the member states. These are partners of the project who have done their own what we call policy and process tracing exercise. We will be published next year in a report, in a deliverable of the Co-VAL project. But they can already bring a fresh perspective about what they have found in their work. So without further ado, perhaps we can start with Ada Scupola, and if you can briefly introduce yourself too, and show your camera, please.
Yes, I'm trying to share my camera. Okay. Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. And my name is Ada Scupola, and I am an associate professor at Roskilde University. And I have been Roskilde University in Denmark, and I have been over the last few months looking in detail what has been going on in Denmark concerning digital transformation in the public service, the public sector, by using using this process tracing method. And I have to say, Miguel, that your findings very much confirm what I have been seeing happening in Denmark over the last 20 years, actually. I mean, concerning strategies, for example, in Denmark, we have been having there has been an official plan to have a strategy every 4 years, but in reality, they have been revised every 2 years, and they have been very good implemented. In fact, I mean, Denmark, as perhaps most of you know, is one, if not the first, in the DESI index to be in the implementation of digital services. And the legislation, I have to say, has also followed the trend of digital transformation. We have not been having many laws, but there have been a few very central and can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I got it out. And yes, very few laws and legislations and acts that have been reinforcing this implementation in a very good way, very strong way in many ways. And recently also the last couple of strategies, actually, they are shifting focus from the citizen services to the more business services. For example, in 2018, we have been having a strategy for digital growth, which is focusing on SMEs and the trade. And then we have been having also another strategy which is focusing on cyber and information security, and that's the plan for the next 3-4 years. So yes, and most of these, I mean, all these initiatives have been anchored in the legislation that the EU community has been setting for the member states. Hello?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much for this perspective. I think we can now move on to the perspective from Spain. And Luis, if you want to bring us your point of view. We cannot hear you, Luis.
Yeah. Can you hear me
yes.
now?
Yes.
Good. Thank you, David. Thank you, Miguel, also for this very good presentation. Well, in Spain, we also have a team working on in these things. By the way, Fernando de Pablo is one of working with us in this, so Miguel, you know him very well. What I would like to tell you is what I think can be the basically what we have been doing in this area for a long time, as also Miguel was saying, that in Spain has provided some very good examples. In fact, OECD report flagged Spain as best practice among especially the big countries, has been considered in some indicators as the leading country in terms of digital agendas, e-government, among the not the small countries that are more advanced in some things, but big countries that are more difficult to manage. And here we have been strong, not only for in general strategies, for example, for private sector, for business digitization, e-commerce, but for public sector, we've been strong in the use of, for example, interoperability, one of the examples that Miguel was providing, and decentralization. I think this is one of the key strong points in Spain. The electronic administration in general, use of big data, for example, in services like e-health. So I think we have a strong point in our policy design and implementation. Now we also have a very interesting new digital agenda, but this now, unfortunately, due to the political situation, is kind of in the pipeline. It has been because of the change of government a few months ago, so it has not been approved. But I think that there is always progress in this area. In terms of challenges, I would say that the challenges in Spain has been mainly first related to the lack of skills and human capital. For example, we see that from the technological point of view and infrastructure for e-government, we are very in advance, but sometimes people are not very well skilled in order to use all the services that could be potentially be used in the system. This is, of course, partly because of this skill problem. That is maybe one of the main challenge. Another problem, I would say that this is not only for Spain, but I would say that this is for whole Europe, that our policies has been traditionally, and this is my view, too supply-driven, too much top-down, and too much perhaps technological and bias and legal bias. I think this was necessary in Spain and in other countries as well. But now I think now is the time to think about we're making research in this project about more demand-driven approach, more participation of citizens, more engagement, for example, of businesses as well, which is also another area in which we also have to make improvements in Europe and also in Spain. So the issue is that sometimes this engagement of citizens and businesses is solved by public consultation, like the Commission also produce a lot of public consultations, but this is, I would say that this is not enough. This is necessary, of course, to get some feedback on the things, but the idea is that how to engage citizens and users really in the co-value thing, no, in the how they can be co-design services. How can we move from these more infrastructure and systemic and legal frameworks and technological platforms that are extremely necessary and useful into a more service-driven and user-driven procedure. I would say that this is the main challenge, at least from my point of view, from Spain, but also I would say that for Europe, for all countries. And I stop here. Sorry. Thank you.
This is great, and I share a lot of your concerns also based on my experience. But let's hear now from Christine about France. So you have the floor.
It's okay?
Yes,
it's okay
please.
for you? You hear me?
We can hear you very well.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, thank you for your demonstration. I would like to speak about France because I've read a lot of reports and I've looked about the website Legifrance, about all the laws, orders, and so on, about the digitalization of France. In fact, France appears to be at the 18th rank in the DESI index in 2018, and is in the average of the European Union in connectivity. It's not, it's under the average about connectivity, especially because of fast broadband, and under the average of European Union, also in the use of internet, but it's better in the scores of human capital and digital public services. In fact, these scores reflect the geography of the country because we have 607 million inhabitants on a large larger than Denmark on a large superficie, and it reflects also the history of the ICT policies, because in fact we had ICT policies since 1982, and from 1982 to 2022 local authorities and the states, the states with the local authorities debate about connectivity to reduce the digital divide, the spatial digital divide between especially rural areas and metropolitan areas. And we are just now exactly in that debate today because of what the events, you know, in France that we call the yellow gilets jaunes. I don't know, it's in English. France seems to have an advance in infrastructure because we had the French Minitel in 1984, but from 1984 to 1988 we had a lot of programs and different waves of technologies in order to reduce the spatial digital divide. It's always a new work to do because of technological innovations. So when I read the report, it seems that since 30 years, the institutions believe that the more important is the place of France in the world, especially about research and innovation in digital innovations. And the second important theme is the equality between citizens and the equality between the local authorities and the territories. But the government recently has put in evidence that 13% of the French citizens in 2019 18, they never use the internet. So the political challenge is now to have 100% of dematerialized public services by 2022, and the problem is e-inclusion. So recently we had, since the end of 1917, we had policies to try to reduce the e-inclusion, and the debate actually in France is the e-inclusion, the problem of inclusion of digital innovations in the countries, in the rural areas, in the little cities and so on. And perhaps it's a question of a problem of economic development between the territories, the metropolitan areas and the non-metropolitan areas. Concerning the policies about the role of the users, in fact, you have different steps in the action of presidents. For example, at the time of Lionel Jospin as a prime minister, the shift, the more important question was to go from Minitel technology to the internet technology, because it was a problem for France to be on the right technology. Under Nicolas Sarkozy, the question was the modernization of administration and the startup economy. Under François Hollande as president, the question was the digital republic and to create new laws and new rights for citizens. And since Emmanuel Macron as a president, the question is the state as a platform with agile methods and state startups. And it seems that the more important is now to try to co-create with citizens new policies, and you have at the level of the state some initiatives like Etalab to try to transform the high-level administration, or you have the initiative beta.gouv, and they are just now they are making a MOOC to try to work with local administration to help them to innovate with the citizens. So I try to follow the MOOC. I am in the MOOC to understand how they do. And you have a lot of discourse about co-creation, service design, experimentation, online consultations, and so on. And my conclusion will be that it's very strange, because when I've made that report, it seems there is a lot of laws, a lot of initiatives, a lot of tools from the state to the local authorities. And there is a gap, a real gap between all what I know when I read all that things on the websites, on Legifrance and so on, and when I see the actuality on the radio or the TV and so on. Just now, it seems there is a gap between the state and that between with the citizens, that they do not know all what is down on the discourse and on the laws for the digitalization of the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christine. I think it is so insightful to not only take the long perspective over the years, but also to listen to how digital government interacts with all the key priorities, the key policy priorities. And we mentioned a lot the role of local authorities, the role of rural areas, and we know how much the rural city divide is important in understanding the changes that are going on in our society, and the Gilets jaunes phenomenon, but also the populist movement, and also the voting pattern. There is so much difference between cities and countryside, and certainly digital government has a role to play. Now, before we move to the last two, just to steer a little bit of the attention, because I realize we have had a lot of direct speeches, I want to share with you just one slide. We have mentioned a lot the importance of DESI and data and so on. I don't know if you can see this. These are the data coming from the European Commission. Across the years, this is the uptake of a government. And what you can see is the major difference between member states. This is Italy down here, progressing very slowly, and this is Denmark, which basically since 2012 has had the vast majority of people using digital services. France is second, and you can see Belgium and the others more or less in the middle. Anyway, let's go back to the discussion and let's move back to the speakers. So we now have Francesco Moeddu about Italy.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Francesco Moeddu, and I'm Associate Director at the Lisbon Council. I will briefly give some insights about the Italian case. So it's pretty obvious that Italy is not scoring well in all dimensions that compose the DESI index. In fact, there are some issues. From one side, there are structural disadvantages regarding the connectivity infrastructures. And on the other hand, the level of literacy and human development related to IT in Italy is quite low. On the other hand, there's always been a pluricentric governance with a functional view of ICT, rather than a truly coordinated steering group at a central level. In this way, necessary regulations and investments has always been hindered. And the role of digital transformation is considered mainly as a technical issue, rather than a policy issues and a source of competitive advantage for the countries and its population. This has changed a lot with the establishment of the Italian digital team, which has brought an agile approaches to fill existing gaps in some key areas of needed improvement. On the other hand, the current political priorities are not focusing on digital transformation. In fact, in the new, let's say, contract between the main political forces which are governing Italy, digital transformation is basically not mentioned. And on the other hand, the temporary role of the digital team probably may hinder the transformation that is going on at the moment in Italy. However, also related to what Miguel was presenting, there have been two main, let's say, framework that has been brought about by the digital team. One is the 3-year plan for ITC in public administration, 2017-2019, which is basically the strategic and economic policy document that presents the evolution of the public administration information system. So the objective of the plan is to rationalize the expenditure of the administration, improving the quality of services. Basically this plan established 3 main development models. At the national level, rules and standards are defined so that the platforms that optimize investments are implemented and enabled. And at the central and local administration, there is the possibility to develop services according to specific needs, using internal or market skills. On the other hand, the private sector is able to establish long-term investment programs and exploit new market opportunities by creating solutions that integrate with national platforms. Related to the Italian plan is the data analytic framework, which was basically developed and implemented by Raffaele Lillo, the Chief Data Officer of the Italian Digital Team. And basically the data and analytics framework has the goal to develop and simplify the interoperability of public data between the public administrations, standardize and promote the dissemination of open data, and optimize the processes for data analysis and knowledge creation. So basically, the idea is to steer and leverage on the big data management analysis and modern platform in order to increase the effectiveness and efficiency of public administration. So the idea is to increase the value of the public administration information assets through the use of big data technologies, encourage and optimize the exchange of data between the public administration, so between the central public administration and the local public administrations, encourage the dissemination of open data and make this dissemination more effective and more useful for prospective users of this public sector information, and favor the explanatory analysis of data by data scientist team, both within individual public administrations and also at the central level. So concluding, this new data analytics framework that hopefully will continue to operate in the following years is basically the keystone of the Italian strategy for digital transformation of public administration. Thank you.
Many thanks. We've heard back and again how important the data-centered approach is, in particular in the context of the once only principle. Last but not least, Stephanie, my colleague from the Lisbon Council offices, will present the case of Belgium.
Hello. Hi. So, hi, my name is Stephanie Lewczynski and I'm Senior Director at the Lisbon Council. Thank you very much, Miguel, for your presentation and for compiling all this data. I did it just for Belgium, and so I can say respect that you did it for all the member states, really. So I'd like now to highlight some of the key points for Belgium, which belongs to the high-performing cluster of countries in the DESI index. So it actually ranks on the position 8 in this year index. And since the 2000s, Belgium has adopted strategies to digitalize its public administration, to simplify it. And I found no less than 12 strategies actually since the 2000s at the federal level, but also at the regional levels. Miguel, you highlighted the importance of e-government infrastructure, and I'd like to stress 3 of them for Belgium, which are actually very important, and I think it's also why it reflects so well on his positioning in the DESI index. So Belgium first was an early adopter of digital portals, citizens portals. The first one, Belgium.be, was launched as early as 2002, so very, very early. And it evolved over time, and still now in the current Digital Belgium strategy, it's a key feature. So they really stress the importance of a single portal, digital portal, where citizens and businesses can register and report all their life events to their governments, but in a digital way. The second key infrastructure is e-signature. So here it's really remarkable. Belgium was the first Belgian electronic ID was launched in 2003, but in 2004, Belgium was the first country in the world to issue an e-ID with the portrait of the holder stored in a microchip. So very remarkable. And in terms of e-invoicing, I also wanted to highlight this infrastructure, because there are also good achievements in Belgium, and especially in the Flemish government, one of the 3 regions. The Flemish government no longer accepts paper invoices since the beginning of 2017, and for all the new contracts with the local government. So, as mentioned, Belgium is a very complex country when it comes to administrative division, and so you have the federal state, the 3 regions, and also the 3 language communities. And quite logically, I would say that local authorities also are very powerful. So it's probably not a coincidence that Belgium was, Belgian cities such as Ghent, for example, were really at the forefront already in 2010 when it comes to local e-governments. And they signed actually in 2010, like almost precisely 8 years ago, they signed the Citadel Statement, making the Malmö vision real by identifying what local e-government really needs. And this is really considered as a strong starting point for European policies on local governments. And so that was signed in Ghent, really pushed for by the Flemish government. And when you put this in perspective with the guide on e-governments that was published for local and regional governments by the European Commission, that was made only in October 2017. So you can see that Belgium here was really at the forefront. Briefly, I also wanted to comment on one of your points, Miguel, on the health and the fact that newly available services for citizens are a lot in this sector. Again, this is in the Belgian strategy to really put health as one of the main features, and they want to actually create a digital health valley. If I can just illustrate that with one example I know well, it's the Zorglab Aalst. So it's a program in the city of Aalst in Flanders, where they actually designed this program to help the elderly to stay longer at home independently. And this is designed as a living lab. They are in co-creation mode with the citizens. And the results of this program were so good that it actually triggered the municipal authorities to think more ambitiously and to really think about their city as a digital healthcare hub. So they want to attract more companies dealing with digital healthcare service and products. And they want to maintain a good dialogue with them, and with the main goal of providing good healthcare services for their aging population. I also wanted to mention that not everything can be rosy in this situation, so Belgium also has challenges. One of them, according to me, is the implementation of their Once Only Act. So this act also, of course, refers to the once only principle in the Tallinn Declaration on e-government. And that was one of the features of this current federal government, to really make it a reality in the Belgian administrations. But while analyzing all the press releases from the Chancellery, you can actually see that the government keeps urging its administration to implement it, and it's not going to be a reality by the end of this term. Unfortunately, the administration is not on track. So this is one of the points where it could actually still make improvements. And briefly to conclude, so based on the Belgian case, I would say that it really pays off to be a first mover in terms of e-government infrastructure. It reflects, Belgium was really adopting this infrastructure like Citizens Portal, e-signatures, and so on, really early, and probably this is also why they reflect so well on the DESI index. And I also wanted to say that at subnational levels, like local levels, for example, are really an important player to have on board. And in very decentralized countries like Belgium, the local level can actually be your best partner in crime when you want to implement meaningful digital transformation measures. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. It's good that you mentioned the challenges ahead, and I think many countries are facing similar challenges, particularly with the implementation of the once only. Thank you, everyone. We are approaching the end of the webinar. I think it's extremely useful and insightful to have this balance of EU and local view. There are two questions left that I haven't addressed, and I would like to summarize. First, the question from Barbara Kudvanaite. I'm sorry if I say it wrong. If we can have some practical example of successful co-creation. No, I cannot do that now because of reason of time, but just let me remind you that the project overall is about co-creation, and what we have addressed today is only a specific part about policy and process tracing in digital government. So next year we will actually publish a policy paper precisely on the topic, and we will have a a meeting on that, so we will keep you informed, and of course we will address your question in the next reports and presentations. The other question is very important, and I would like to see if perhaps Ada can answer that. There is a question on how to better balance demand and supply side in digital transformation. This comes from Met Castare. What instruments work better? Any good practice, for example, in Denmark? How did you manage to have so many people using digital government? Ada, are you there? Can you address this?
Can you hear me now?
Ada, yes, you are.
Okay.
Yes, now
Okay.
we can. Please.
Yes.
Be brief,
First of
we are
all,
almost.
yes. Thank you. First of all, thank you for the question. And yes, there are several factors, both supply that relate both to supply, demand, and legislation that have made Denmark to be consistently the first country in perhaps in the world, at least in the DESI index. And this is first, we have a very strong infrastructure, also dictated by the legislation. I mean, there has been focus on broadband since the 80s, and the government has been driving very strong campaigns for making everybody connecting to broadband. And this, I mean, like the budgets, it's also like very, I don't know how it is in other countries, but in Denmark has been so that the government always allocates seats money, and then it's through like the telecommunication companies and the households and businesses that this has been taking place. So the infrastructure, the digital infrastructure is strong. Then we have to say also that the digital competencies and competencies in general of the Danish population as very also advanced, and a lot of focus has been put also on the on developing these competencies. For example, we have been introducing use of digital technologies in already kindergartens, in schools, and so forth. And then there has been a very strong focus from the government also to use the development of services and digitalization to also develop an industry concerning this. So we have very advanced kind of niche software companies. So I would say, as also Luis has said, it has been mainly really top down, but this top down has also created somehow a little bit of a demand side, but it has been mainly like supply, I mean mainly demand from the government. But as I already said briefly at the beginning, since the beginning of the 90s, the digital strategies have gone hand in hand with the other strategies of the government, so that they have been complementing each other with strong focus. And even like our government has been restructured to accommodate digitalization in digital transformation. For example, in 1998, if I'm not wrong, or 97, there has been a huge structural reform of the regional government in Denmark. We had, I think it was 19 regions, and they had been cut down to 5. And this because it made the transformation easier and would consolidate also some municipalities so they could afford this transformation. So everything, I mean, there has been really a very strong focus about this, and the idea is to provide better services to the citizens and to the businesses, but also to increase efficiency within, and to save, of course, money by increasing efficiency within the public sector.
Thank you very much, Ada. Very insightful observation. We are running a bit late, 5 minutes late, so I would like to take this opportunity to simply thank all the speakers, all the people working on the webinar, and of course, all the people attending. We hope this is just the beginning of a beautiful collaboration with all of you, and we will follow up soon with the next activities of the project and the deliverables and information about the reports that you have. You're also curious about, both Co-VAL reports and the European Commission report that Miguel has presented. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Thank
Bye.
you very much.
Thank you very much.